Hi guys, welcome back. I thought it would be fun today to go over the differences between the Sephora Collection and the Sephora Pro brushes. Head-to-head competition. Well, at least with the brushes I was able to get, because the Sephora Collection doesn't have quite as many. So we're going to do our best. We're going to do a little comparing and contrasting, just in case you're in the market for some new brushes. The Sephora sale is coming up, and if you're wondering if it really matters for yourself and your own personal usage for the brushes, which one to buy, hopefully this will help with that. We're going to be doing as direct a comparison as possible. So while the Sephora Pro collection does have significantly more brushes and a wider selection, in this video we'll just focus on the ones with a direct comparison. So let's get started with a little bit of primer. I'll be using the Sephora Hydrate all day. Figure use as much Sephora as I can. I mean, why not? This I picked up during the Christmas sales. It was in one of the little gift sets that they have. And actually it's been pretty nice. It's a good little hydrating primer. If you want to fill up your pores, this may not be it, but if all you want to do is create a nice base, I think you'll be satisfied. All right, and so for the foundation brushes we're going to be using, the Sephora Collection has a very nice dense foundation brush, which is good for a more full coverage foundation. You can see it's pretty densely packed, little stubby bristles, that sort of style of foundation brush. And then the Sephora Pro we'll be comparing it to is the number 70. So similar style, the short brushes, very densely packed. And you can tell immediately with this one, the Sephora Pro number 70, it feels much more densely packed. There are a lot more bristles in here. I think both of them are synthetic bristles, so they're both vegan. But yeah, we'll be pitting the two against each other. I'll be doing the left side of my face, so I guess the right side of the screen, with the Sephora brushes. And the Sephora Pro brushes will be on my right side over here. So we'll do our best to keep it straight. The foundation I'll be using is the YSL All Hours. This style of brush is best suited for a full coverage foundation. This is one of the few full coverage ones I have, and I really like it, so that'll be our base for today. And when I'm using a foundation brush, similar to the way you would wet a beauty sponge to put makeup on, I do like to moisten the bristles of the brush. So I'll be doing that. I'll just spray it with a little bit of the Caudalie grape water, just to get it, a little moist so it doesn't just suck up all of the product. All right, I think that did a really nice job of applying the foundation without leaving brush marks. I'm very satisfied with the coverage. I think I did a really nice job. It feels nice applying too, because while the bristles are dense, they're not like super dense, so it's a nice experience to use the brush. Yeah, I think it went on very nicely. So that's one thing with the Sephora Collection is they don't have numbers, so this is just their complexion is what they call it, brush. They also like to vary them a lot over different holidays. They'll release some fun colors. So whenever you go to buy a Sephora Collection brush, sometimes they'll have these cute little sets with different patterns. So if you see it with this color, if you go to buy it, it'll probably be a different color. They change them up all the time. But over the years, I've found they're still pretty consistent in terms of the quality and what the brush can do. All right, let's go in with the Sephora Pro number 70. Again, with the same All Hours foundation, and I will spritz this brush just the same as the other. All right, I don't really think I can tell much of a difference. They both went on beautifully. I haven't used this foundation in a little while because I don't normally go full coverage, so I forgot how much I liked it. Yeah, similar, no brush marks, we're looking good. Like with this Pro version of the brush, you can really feel the difference when you're putting it on in terms of it being a lot stiffer, because it has so many more bristles. So it wasn't like, didn't feel quite as nice putting it on, but I kind of feel like it went a little faster actually. But yeah, I think they both did an excellent job. So if your preference is full coverage foundation, I don't think you can go wrong either way. One key difference typically between Pro and the just general collection is just like longevity of the brushes. So these are designed to be more laundered, like you're going to be washing them more. They're expecting you to be using them multiple times a day on different people if you are a makeup artist. So sometimes that's part of the difference. So before we move on to concealer, I just wanted to do a quick little demo. Like the Pro Collection, for example, has like the number 47 foundation brush, which is a completely different shape. Like it isn't the dome. This is more designed for like the liquidy foundations, the thinner, even like a tinted moisturizer to apply. So if you use different types of foundation, if you have like an everyday and you're more of a serum foundation sort of girl, then you might want to look at the Pro Collection to see some of their variety, because they have, I think, 5. So there's a much wider variety to choose from for foundation brushes. So there's kind of a point for the Sephora Pro Collection in terms of variety, but if you just want that similar, the dome for the fuller coverage foundation, I think you will definitely enjoy the Sephora Collection brush. Next, we'll move on to concealer brushes. Now the Sephora Collection has a concealer brush that is of the more flat variety. So as you can see, it's the thinner, flatter. So really nice if you want to do a cut crease, or if you're trying to clean up a little bit of eye makeup, when you're doing like the wing or something, you need to like clean up a little. So this is great for those sorts of situations. I have the comparable Sephora Pro number 45 brush. Similar, very flat, very thin concealer brush. I'll be using this with my favorite concealer, or just about my favorite concealer. This is a little more of the full coverage variety, so it'll match well with the foundation I'm using. It's just the Hourglass concealer, the Vanish concealer. And we're going in on my left side with the Sephora Collection first. All right, it does a nice job. I know with even slightly more mature skin, like I'm only into my 40s, but using this style of brush, it's a little stiffer. So I find I have to kind of tug at my skin a tiny bit more than I would like to. I do prefer a fluffier concealer brush. But this is great if either you're younger or you really like doing like the cut crease, or you want to use it for cleaning up either your eyebrows or any eye makeup. It really does a nice job for that. It's good for precision concealer application. Now let's do the other side with the Sephora Pro brush number 45. Very similar. I think it did just as good of a job, and again, still somewhat stiff, so it's excellent for any sort of cleanup work. But we did pretty well. I think we have nice concealer base. The Sephora Pro Collection does have the more fluffy concealer brush, so if you are interested in that, you would have to look to the Sephora Pro Collection. It doesn't really have that in the regular Sephora Collection. Next, we're moving on to contour brushes. So the Sephora Collection has a nice fluffy domed contour brush, which is perfect for powder contour application. I do not always powder contour, but in this case, we're going to go with it. The Sephora Pro line has the number 79 contour brush for powder contour application. They both feel very similar. I think if you were to compare them, the Sephora Collection is a larger contour brush, and the And the Sephora Pro is smaller for more precise application. For our contour powder, we'll be using my favorite for powder contour from Smashbox from the Cali Contour palette. So they've got contour, highlight, bronzer, blush, so there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. We'll be just going in with their one contour shade. All right, Sephora Collection on this side. I picked up a lot of product. I wasn't expecting quite that much. Be ready for an editorial photo shoot by the end of this. I mean, it's partly me picking up a little more than I expected with this brush. But yeah, it was better, I thought, at applying it in a precise area because it was a little more fluffy. So we've got it in an area and I'm trying to contain it and blend it. This is why I don't use powder contour, people. All right, let me go over a little bit with some normal powder, see if we're good. All right, so a little earlier than expected, we're gonna take the Sephora Collection powder brush, a nice fluffy domed powder brush. We'll go into the Sephora powder. And we'll try to save this. Okay, I think we've improved the situation. All right, let's try to take a little less and go in with the Sephora Pro brush on my right side. All right, we'll go in with the number 79 into the Cali Contour. All right, so I took a little less. I think we did better. It's definitely a contour. But that's kind of the point, right? It's okay. It's hard to say if I had an easier time with this because I took a little less or because it does seem a little more dense. So I feel like when I went to try to blend it, it did a better job of actually blending than the Sephora Collection, which is definitely more fluffy. It's listed as a highlight / contour brush from the Sephora Collection, so that's probably why it's a little more fluffy. I think I'd probably like this better as a highlighter brush than as a contour brush. But the Sephora Pro one, with its just a little more density, I think helped a lot. Let's see if we can fix the other side. I think I just put too much on, but either way. So that's kind of the compare and contrast between the contour brushes. All right, moving on to bronzer brushes next. The Sephora Collection doesn't really have specifically a bronzer brush, but we're gonna go with their powder brush and see if we can make it work for some bronzer. I mean, you just need like a nice big fluffy brush for bronzing, so the powder brush should work. We'll be using the classic butter bronzer. I didn't want to use anything I'm not too familiar with. I think that worked nicely. I'm generally light-handed with a light shade of bronzer because I am kind of pale, so I feel like it's a little too obvious when I try to wear bronzer. So for my preferred level of bronzing, I think this works nicely. Just a little more on top, just, you know, vacation vibes. All right, now let's take a look at the Sephora Pro bronzer brush, which is a true bronzer brush. It is the number 80. It is a nice, satisfying, giant, fluffy bronzer brush. So this is fun, especially if you like to go in with the bronzer and really warm up the skin. I'll try not to be too much more aggressive than normal just because I want to make sure I'm trying these in a way I would normally use them, so it's more scientific that way. All right, let's warm up the other side. There's just something a little more fun about a giant fluffy brush. I don't know if it's just me. Please let me know if anyone else just really enjoys a nice big fluffy bronzer brush. Yeah, I think they both did a very nice job Again, I don't go too heavy-handed, but they worked excellently, I think. So if you do want to use just your general powder brush, you can do that from the Sephora Collection for bronzing up and be perfectly satisfied. Next, we're moving on to blush. They do have one of the nice angled blush brushes, which is my preference for a blush brush. So the Sephora Collection brush, nice and fluffy, angled, very soft. The Sephora Pro number 93 is their angled blush brush. I feel like they had a couple of varieties. Again, nice and soft and fluffy. So let's go in. Collection on this side. I will be using a Sephora blush, actually. I found a cute little palette in their area of makeup. So they've got just a nice seasonal spring, summer. And then there's kind of a good daytime highlighter. And then there's a nice sparkly evening highlighter over here. So I think I picked up the Face Trio palette in Gleam. If anyone's looking for a nice spring blush. And I did a really nice job blending it quickly. And it's such a nice spring light pink color on me. I'm in love. They had a few different varieties, so you can check it out in case maybe this isn't your shade. They might have one that is. Yeah, let's go in on the other side with the Sephora Pro blush brush, number 93. Did the job nicely. I don't know, I feel like this is definitely a case where you could get away with using the Sephora Collection for sure if you were trying to consider like where you can save a little cash. I think they're both really great angled blush brushes. And again, some of the differences with the Pro line is it is intended to be used more heavily and washed more often. So if it's just for yourself, I think you'd get along just fine with the Sephora Collection brush. All right, let's move on to some of the eye brushes. I did pick up the cute little Sephora Destinations palette. It was just so sweet and it just had the most pretty spring colors. So they have this lovely lavender, this beautiful purple shimmer that's like not too much. I feel like these are just lovely everyday spring shades. So I was really excited to try these out. We have 3 different varieties of brushes we'll be trying to use. So nothing too complicated, just a nice easy everyday look. This is the Blending Crease brush from the Sephora Collection. So a nice fluffy domed eyeshadow brush, pretty good general purpose one. And the closest matching brush in the Sephora Pro Collection I found was the number 19. Similar domed fluffy crease brush. You can see them next to each other. All will be consistent. Sephora Collection, Sephora Pro. Yeah, you can see they are very similar. I think the Sephora Collection is a little more fluffy, but again, the Sephora Pro line has significantly more variety in terms of eyeshadow brushes. All right, let's use the crease, the nice fluffy crease brush to put the lighter sort of peach shade. What's that one called? Oh, I don't see shade names, but the lighter peach shade. I'm going all over the eyelid with that on the Sephora Collection side. All right, does exactly what you'd expect a nice fluffy crease brush to do. Very satisfied. Now let's go in with the Pro side. Take care of the other. Same peachy shade. I think the Pro is maybe a tiny bit softer. But yeah, these are very similar. They both do an excellent job. So again, if you're trying to save a little cash, I think the Sephora Collection will do just fine. But if you're looking for a wider variety of shapes and sizes, then Sephora Pro is going to be there for you. All right, I'm gonna go into the lavender with they just generally call it eyeshadow brush in the Sephora Collection. It's a little flatter of a brush, and you can see it's a little thin, flat. So this is good for depositing color exactly where you want it. So we'll be going in with the lavender shade on the collection side. All right, they did a nice job of putting the color exactly where I wanted it. So that's what we wanted to do. So excellent, checks the box. Now let's try the Sephora Pro brush. And for the similar shape, I found the number 13. This looks a little more fluffy than the Sephora Collection brush, but it should do a similar job. As far as the eyeshadow itself, I think the lavender shade is very light, so it is buildable. You do have to go in a little bit if you want it to show up. Still, it could be nice to have that control of how opaque you want it to be, so far it's nice. All right, now I'm going to go back in with, actually no, we're gonna do like a little bit on the lower lash line just to use the smudge brush. So each has a smudge brush. The Sephora Collection has a really cute little one. It's a little more flat. Not quite as fluffy. I mean, it's a smudge brush, but it's quite flat. So we'll go in with that same lavender shade on the Sephora Collection side and just a little bit underneath. All right, I think that did a really nice job. It wasn't too sturdy. Like sometimes the brushes will be like a little dense and you feel like you're really, when you're in there trying to smudge it out, it can feel like it's a little aggressive, but this was a very nice balance. I think it did a nice job. Again, it's a fairly light shade, but the spring look is coming together. So the closest thing I could find to a smudge brush in the Sephora Pro, it's a little bigger, I'll admit. So the number 18, it's a little more fluffy. So if you're really looking for like a nice, small, dedicated smudge brush, you really might need to go with the Sephora Collection itself instead of a Sephora Pro brush. Let's see how this does. Yeah, with it being so much larger, it definitely like fluffed it out farther, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you really want like a nice small smudge brush for good control, I think I like the Sephora Collection one better. But again, they didn't quite have an exact equivalent in Pro. I was just trying to find the closest thing. All right, now we'll go in for some glitter. I'll be going back to that same, the more flat brush for the more precise application of eyeshadow. So I'll just use the other side because I use the one side for the eyeshadow, and then the other clean side, I'll pick up some of the glitter. And I'll just use the purple glitter shade from the palette. I think I would like to either spray down the brush for this particular glitter shade, or maybe use a finger. This might not have been the best choice. There's a nice multicolor shift in the glitter though, so it's pretty. It's like a nice daytime glitter, if that's a thing. All right, let's try the Sephora Pro brush for the same job. So this is the number 13 from the Sephora Pro collection. And that same purple glitter. We'll see if this picks up anymore. I actually think the Sephora Collection one did better because it's a little more dense. This one's a little more fluffy. Oh. Yeah, I think it's having trouble with the glitter. I mean, I would normally want to apply glitter with my fingertip anyway, just because of this exact problem. But I thought I'd be curious to see how the brushes performed. I think they worked a lot better with the regular eyeshadow. That's okay, it's to be expected. All right, so let's put on some setting powder, especially under the eyes and in, you know, the T-zone area. I do have the Sephora Collection powder. Thought I'd give that a try. In the spirit of the Sephora versus Sephora, we have the translucent setting powder. So we'll go in with with the Sephora Pro, or not Sephora Pro, the Sephora Collection powder brush. Actually, because I can, I have one of the Sigma color switches. I don't know how well you can tell, but there's like little silicone nubblies on here, and you can rub your brush on and remove any color. So since we did try to clean up the contour, we're just gonna try to clean it up a little bit with this. So just swirl the brush around on there. And there wasn't much, so I think we're good. Let's tap out a little into the cap, and we will use the Sephora powder brush for some all over. Oh, not all over, it's only my left side. Ha! Caught myself. It's hard to do half your chin, let me tell you. Especially half your nose. Like, I don't do half my nose. Everything you would like a powder brush to be, light and fluffy. So that was nice. I think we've deposited some powder. Let's try the other side. Now, the Sephora Pro powder brush is a little bigger, a little fluffier. It's kind of been my favorite for applying powder lately. I did pick up the 50 and the 50.5 in one of their little Christmas gift sets, so I had both the powder brushes. So fluffy. I've been using the smaller one for like the under eye powder to set the concealer. It's been delightful. So let's use the big one for some all over powder. All over the Sephora Pro side, that is. It's just so nice and fluffy. So fluffy. I do think they're pretty similar. I mean, they're both powder brushes, right? Like, they do a lovely job. They're both nice and domed. So the Sephora Collection versus the Sephora Pro. So the Sephora Collection is a little smaller. So depending on your face shape and where you're trying to put the powder, it can be kind of preferable. So there's that. And then just the giant fluffiness of the Sephora Pro. And even though it's so large, it is tapered in such a way that you still can get under the eye pretty well. But I do think the 50.5 is just a little nicer for that purpose. All right, so real quick, we're gonna do brows. Now, I don't typically use powder for my brows, but the Sephora Collection kit I bought had a little powder brush for doing your brows. So you've got the brush end, and then you have the spoolie. So it's always nice to have a spoolie. So you can kind of brush up the eyebrow, put on the powder. Since I don't usually use powder for my eyebrows, I was looking around to see what like kind of dark brown or reddish brown shadow I had. So I'm just going to be using a brown out of the Natasha Denona palette. I think this is Zand or Arosto. Can never tell because you look at the back and it has the names, and then when you flip it over, I'm like, is it which side? So anyway, we'll be using the darkest color out of here for the brows. Let's see how that goes. Sephora Collection brush, Sephora Collection side. I think that did a nice job with precision application, but the color might be a little light, so I apologize if it's distracting you. You're like, it's kind of crazy, but the brush itself did a very nice job. The spoolie was fine. Color match, not so much, but the brush itself, yeah, it did a good job. So the Sephora Pro has an equivalent brush, the number 20. It's their powder brow brush. Like, these are extremely similar. I think this one actually might be a little more fluffy. I think this one's a little thinner with fewer bristles, so I really felt like I could get precise with this. We'll see how it goes with the Pro. The Pro is probably gonna go faster. Okay, so with the Sephora Pro being a little more fluffy, I think I did a better job when I was trying to coat the actual brow hairs themselves with the eyeshadow powder versus the Sephora Collection brush, which did a really good job filling in. Like, I was able to get in there and precisely fill in where there was any sparsity. But for covering the hairs, I felt like I had a little more trouble. So if you're trying to actually cover the hairs themselves with the color, which, you know, if you're trying to cover up grays or something, the Sephora Pro did an excellent job with that. So yeah, I think they both worked very nicely. The spoolies worked as you would expect a spoolie to, so that was great. Because the final step is highlighter. All right, now for the fun part, highlighter. The Sephora Collection had a really nice thin fan brush. I love these types for doing highlighter. It's very thin, very fluffy. You can put like a nice small targeted amount of highlighter on. Whereas the Sephora Pro, they have several in Sephora Pro's defense, but their fan highlighter brush is just so chonky, like it's huge. So if you're applying a more natural looking highlight that's not too blinding, I think this will do a lovely job, but look at them together. They're so different. Like there's just such a big size difference. So I think it depends on how you find yourself applying your highlighter. If you're really doing it at nighttime, maybe you want like the targeted, where you can really put on a nice blinding highlight. Or if you're just doing it on an everyday basis, the nice fluffy one. Although the contour brush from Sephora Collection is also a highlighter, so I guess they've got two variety. We'll use the fan, because I love a good fan brush for highlights. So we'll be going back into that trio from Sephora. We've got, I think we'll use the middle highlighter, the more everyday sort of highlighter, because then we can always amp it up with extra glow if we feel like we need to. Okay, Sephora Collection side highlight. Wow, talk about precision. I went to put it on and you could like see a line where I put it. It was so precise. Oh, I should only have done half my nose. Again, it's hard to just do half of them. Like dust a little on part of it. Oh well, we'll have to judge it off of the natural highlight area. Okay, so this highlighter was a little more aggressive than I expected it to be. Woo! All right, so much for my thoughts that it was a good daytime highlighter. All right, so yeah, good for precise application. It went right where I wanted it, but man, I put a lot there. Because it was a new highlighter, I might have gone in a little hard, trying just to make sure that I got some, because you know, sometimes when a powder is new, it can take a little bit of digging to get out what you want. So that happened. All right, we're gonna be, yeah, we threw caution to the wind with one side. We'll see what happens on the other. I won't be necessarily too careful, because I do want an accurate test. So the fluffy number 87 Sephora Pro. That is pretty for a highlight. Because it is more fluffy, and I might have taken a little less. I think it does a really good job of sort of dispersing it a little more gently, so it is closer to what I would expect a daytime highlight to be. Yeah, I think this just comes down to how you like to wear your highlight. If you like it a little more intense, the Sephora Collection one is perfect for that. If you're looking to do maybe a little more natural highlight, the Sephora Pro one does an excellent job. You can always build up highlighter, and you can always choose a more blinding highlighter. So I don't know, I kind of like the options with this. You can't go wrong with a nice fan highlighter. All right, there we have it. So here's the full look with the Sephora Collection versus Sephora Pro. I think each of them did a wonderful job with what we needed them to do. I think if you're looking for a variety of shapes, you would really need to look at the Sephora Pro Collection, but it's worth taking a look at the Sephora Collection itself. I mean, they do have really fun different handle colors and little sets. So around the holidays, if you want to give someone a gift, the Sephora Collection products are really great. So it's a nice affordable entry into makeup for someone, or if you just want to switch up the color of your brushes. I think you'd be very happy with it. Hard to go wrong either way. Very happy with all of them. So hopefully this helped and we got to have a little bit of fun. together. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.